You already know how the Roman Empire ended. 476 AD, the last emperor deposed, the eternal city fallen, one of the greatest civilizations in human history, gone. Except it wasn't. The Roman Empire continued for another 977 years after that date. It had a capital city. It had emperors. It had a military, a legal system, a currency, and citizens who called themselves Romans. It fought wars. It produced art. It passed laws that still shape the legal systems of modern nations. And when it finally actually ended, in 1453, most of the Western world barely noticed, because by then they had forgotten it was still there. This is not a footnote in history. This is one of the greatest misunderstandings ever taught in a classroom. And understanding what actually happened changes everything you think you know about how civilizations die. Let's start with 476. When the Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the Emperor Romulus Augustulus in 476 AD, historians in later centuries declared it the end of Rome. The narrative was clean. The story had a final chapter. The empire was dead. But nobody living through it experienced it that way. The eastern half of the empire, centered in Constantinople, the city Constantine had built on the Bosphorus, never fell. It never stopped functioning. The emperor in Constantinople did not consider himself the ruler of a new country. He considered himself the Roman emperor. Full stop. His court spoke Greek, but called themselves Romans. Their legal code was Roman law. Their military traditions were Roman. They referred to themselves as the Basileus Romaion, the emperor of the Romans, for the entire duration of their existence. Historians today call it the Byzantine Empire. The people who lived in it never used that word once. That name was invented by a German historian in 1557, more than a century after the empire ended, to help categorize history in a way that felt tidy to European academics. The Romans of Constantinople would not have recognized the name Byzantine. They would have found it insulting. So what was this empire actually like? At its peak, the Eastern Roman Empire controlled territory across modern Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria, parts of Italy, North Africa, and the Middle East. Its capital, Constantinople, was the largest and wealthiest city in the known world for nearly 1,000 years. While Western Europe descended into the period historians call the Dark Ages, when literacy collapsed, infrastructure crumbled, and trade networks disappeared, Constantinople remained a city of running water, public baths, universities, and libraries. When Charlemagne was crowned emperor in 800 AD and declared himself the ruler of a restored Roman Empire in the West, the actual Roman emperor in Constantinople sent a formal protest. As far as Constantinople was concerned, there was only one Roman Empire and it was still theirs. They were right. But here is the part that genuinely changes how you see history. The Eastern Roman Empire did not simply survive for 1,000 years by hiding. It fought. It adapted. It reformed itself repeatedly. It repelled invasions from Persians, Arabs, Bulgarians, Vikings, and Crusaders. Yes, Crusaders, Christian armies from Western Europe, who sacked Constantinople in 1204 and occupied it for 57 years in what remains one of the most extraordinary acts of friendly fire in military history. The empire recovered even from that. What finally ended it was the Ottoman Empire under Sultan Mehmed II. On May 29, 1453, after a 53-day siege, Ottoman forces breached the walls of Constantinople. The last Roman emperor, Constantine XI Palaiologos, removed his imperial insignia, charged into the fighting, and was never seen again. His body was never identified. The last ruler of the Roman Empire died anonymously in battle, indistinguishable from any other soldier. Constantinople became Istanbul. The Eastern Roman Empire ceased to exist after 1,058 years of continuous operation, and the Western world by then had largely forgotten it was Roman at all. This matters for a reason that goes beyond history trivia. We have a deep need to give civilizations clean endings. Rise, peak, collapse. a story arc that makes sense to the human brain. The Western Roman Empire provided that arc, and we committed to it. 476 AD became the date we agreed on. The story closed. But reality does not work in clean arcs. The Eastern Empire, surviving for 1,000 years after the supposed fall of Rome, tells us something uncomfortable. Civilizations do not end on the dates we assign them. They transform, they fracture, they migrate. Sometimes the thing we declared dead is still walking around, quietly insisting it is alive, while we write its obituary in textbooks. It raises a question that is harder to dismiss than it first appears. If we got Rome this wrong, if an empire that lasted another millennium after its supposed death went largely unrecognized by the very culture it shaped, what other things do we believe ended that are still in some form continuing? What other stories have we closed too early because we needed the narrative to be finished? History is not a sequence of clean endings. It is an argument about which moments count. And for almost 1,000 years, the people of Constantinople were making a very clear argument. They were still Rome. We just stopped listening.